Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Office of Housing Counseling Community Conference. We are very excited to have you join us for our session on the intersection of financial education and housing counseling. I'm Lindsay Burns with ICF, and before we begin, I just want to share a few tips and reminders. As you all are hopefully well aware by now, given how many of you haven't joined us through CVent, we are using the CVent application for you to participate with us in this conference. You can use the community boards, the schedule, the speaker, and connect with partners through the CVent platform, as well as earn points and participate in our CVent game. You can also access all of the recordings for each of the sessions after they've occurred under the schedule in CVent. We know this is our first of a few concurring sessions, so you don't have to miss out on any content today. If you'd like to ask questions during this session, if time permits, we will try to get in as many questions as possible. You can use the live Q&A functionality, as you can see demonstrated here on the screen. For our session today, our speakers are Terry M. Carr, our Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Office of Housing Counseling, Ron Haurigi, a Community Affairs Specialist with FDIC, Sharon Kent, Program Director for Our Money Matters, the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition, Cora Hume, Senior Counsel for the CFPB Office for Older Americans, and Odette Williamson, Senior Attorney for the National Consumer Law Center. We're excited to present with all of the content they have to share on financial education topics that are of relevance and interest to housing counselors. So I'll now turn it over to Terry Carr to share some welcoming words and introduce our first panelists.
Thank you. So good to be here. So we've got a great lineup today, and I don't have a lot to say other than, I think when you think about housing counseling, counselors are working with folks when they are making what is often the most important and the biggest financial decision they will ever make. So purchasing a home is a big financial decision, and there's no way to provide housing counseling without also overlapping into financial education. And so what we want to talk about today is just drill down a little bit more on that. What is the intersection between housing counseling and financial education? And we have with us today some folks who are providing financial education in other respects so that we can have that conversation now. And it's not just buying a house. Later in life, people may be looking to use a reverse mortgage to help with some expenses as they age, to allow them to age in place. Sometimes you want to refinance that home to help put your kids through college. So the house ends up becoming a vehicle to meet a lot of financial goals. And it makes sense that housing counselors would then be drawn into and want to be able to provide additional education that is financially related. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my first speaker, Ron Haurigi from the FDIC, to talk about the efforts they're making to provide financial education. Ron?
Very kind of you, Terry. Thank you. Looking forward to this kind of presentation. The next slide, please. The FDIC Money Smart program includes resources to teach others. That's what we refer to as our instructor-led curriculum, and self-paced direct-to-consumer products that people can use on their own time to learn about money. All our resources are free, unbiased, and ready to go out of the box. We have products for all ages, and they're customizable. We have no copyright restrictions. So you can take our content and tailor them to the needs of your audience. Money Smart helps people enhance their financial skills to create positive banking relationships, but there are other benefits to it. It's regularly updated. Our research shows it to be effective. Money Smart for Adults is one of our products, and it's available in 5 languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Korean. And it's also available in Braille and large print. Our instructor guides can be used by anyone, bankers and non-bankers alike. It's objective, neutral, and it's a trustworthy resource because it's attached to the FDIC brand. The Money Smart Alliance and the Money Smart News publications are just some ways we provide tips and technical assistance to Money Smart champions and Money Smart users. Next slide, please. So these are some of the, or all the topics contained in our Money Smart for Adults product. And there are 3 core components to all our products. There's always an instructor guide that's scripted, gives you some stage direction. There's no prior teaching or banking experience required. And then the second component is a participant guide. That contains scenarios and activities for your students or beneficiaries. There are pre and post surveys, and it can be used in the classroom during your training sessions there or as a resource at home. And then the final component is our PowerPoint slide deck, and that's perfectly aligned with the instructor guide that you would be using. Next slide, please. The How Many Smart Are You game, that's the online game I had mentioned earlier. It obviously can be used online and with mobile smartphones, but it's also optimized for tablets and computers, and it's accessible with screen readers. In the game, you can earn certificates of completion and virtual coins. And organizations such as yours can view certificates for your clients, students, and customers with linked player accounts. And there are new resources contained on the platform, such as exploring key takeaways. There are other tools, FAQs, helpful links, and a financial glossary. Organizations such as yours can have their own accounts as well. Next slide, please. So I'd like you to visit fdic.gov/MoneySmart, or just get to the fdic.gov site and search for Money Smart. There you'll be able to order or download all our products, learn ideas on how to use Money Smart, subscribe to Money Smart News. It gives you a lot of tips right there. Also showcases some successful uses of Money Smart. You can join the Money Smart Alliance. That's free as well. There's no obligation and there's no imposition on you. You can just sit and learn from others using Money Smart if that's all you want to do. You can watch Money Smart videos, and then finally you can register for Money Smart informational webinars. And with that, I'm going to be passing it on to my fellow panelist, Cora. Cora, you ready?
I am. Thank you. Okay. Hi, Cora Hume from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's a real honor to be here. I admire all the work that housing counselors do. I'm a former legal aid attorney from Maryland, and I worked closely with a lot of housing counselors, helping clients either save their homes or get into the homes that were the right fit for them. So I'm really happy to be here. And I'm going to be talking about some guides that the CFPB has produced. Next slide. So in 2019, the Bureau started interviewing older adults, their caregivers, their family members, and intermediaries like housing counselors to learn how did older adults plan for aging with equity? And what we really found was there's not really a plan. A lot of older adults don't plan for aging in their homes, and therefore they usually are hit by some crisis situation that changes the trajectory of them staying at home. And because there's not a plan, a lot of them can be open to frauds and scams, more susceptible to frauds and scams. So we produced, in response to that research, these 4 housing decision guides. And the idea of the housing decision guides were to provide this big picture that provides options, given known pain points for older adults, all the options that they have. That way they can figure out what one is the best for them. So we know that there are resources out there on specific products like reverse mortgages, or about like home equity lines of credit, but nothing about all the products. So that way people can see the big picture and make a decision that's best for them. So as you can see in this slide, there are 4 pain points for older adults that we identified. And the first one is loss of a spouse guide or partner. And this guide provides a checklist or prompts, not really a checklist, I'm sorry, prompts that helps people think about whether it is emotionally, financially, and physically feasible to stay in the home. So emotionally, does staying in the home provide good feelings or sadness after the loss of a spouse? Physically, was your spouse or partner your caregiver? Now that they're gone, can you care for yourself? Do you have problems moving around your house, going up steps, maneuvering in the hallways, getting into bathrooms? Financially, a lot of spouses provide an income. And so loss of a spouse is a loss of an income. So financially, are you able to stay in the home? And so these prompts allow people to sort of think about, does it make sense for me to stay in a home given the emotional, financial, and physical situation that I'm in? And at the end of every guide, all 4 of these guides, we have resources that then can help people, figure out what's best for them. So in this guide, we have links to how do you make your home accessible? How do you create a budget? And then we always refer people to HUD certified housing counseling agencies so that they can talk to someone and walk through really what their problems are. So that's one of the guides. Another guide is how to navigate a change in health. A lot of older adults as they age, experience different health challenges. And this one talks about, what are the different kinds of in-home and out-of-home medical care that an older adult might need. And then it breaks down, options of whether to live with a family member or maybe move with a family member. It also talks about moving into a continuum care retirement community and what those are, assisted living, and nursing homes, and what kind of care and amenities do all of these places usually provide. So that's that guide. The third guide is how to leave your home to an heir, a child or an heir. We heard from a lot of older adults that this is something important to them, but they don't know how to navigate that space. And so this really talks about first it says, in the end, you should really be talking to a tax specialist and a lawyer before making any decision. But it talks about, can you leave your home in a will? Can you give it as a gift? Can you sell it to your child or heir? And what are the tax ramifications on that? Can you place your home in a trust? And then in some states, can you create a transfer on death deed? And there are certain states that allow for that. So it talks about those options, and again says that we're not providing any legal or tax advice, and it does flag that there are ramifications for qualifying for Medicaid based on how a home is transferred. So it flags all those issues. And the last one is how do older adults use their home equity to make financial ends meet? And this talks about cash out refinances. It talks about home equity lines of credit, home equity loans, and reverse mortgages. And for each of those products, it breaks down eligibility, how you receive the money, when the money has to be paid back, and what happens to the loan balance over time, and whether there are monthly payments to pay back the loan. So these guides are really useful. Next slide. They can be found here, and they are translated into 7 languages. They can be ordered in bulk. They can be downloaded for free. So a great resource. And just really quickly, next slide, I wanted to just highlight and show a slide on our reverse mortgage resources. We have reverse mortgage resources for those who are looking to get a reverse mortgage and those who already have a reverse mortgage. So to flag for you before you get a reverse mortgage, there's a 2-minute video that's very simple, edgy. As a legal aid attorney, I would have had that on repeat the whole time in my waiting room, but a great resource to sort of break the ground on what a reverse mortgage is. The Considering a Reverse Mortgage is a 2-page easy handout that someone can take with them. And then the reverse mortgage discussion guide was really built for housing counselors to sit with their clients, whether virtually or in person, and walk through in depth how a reverse mortgage works. And it has graphics as well as text. So some people learn through graphics, and a really interesting way to sort of unpack the details of reverse mortgage in detail. And then after someone has a reverse mortgage, some older adults run into problems, right? And they get a default notice, or they know they're not going to be able to pay their insurance. And so the Rights and Responsibilities Guide is a way that addresses those kind of issues for reverse mortgage borrowers. And then there's one about how to have a reverse mortgage after a natural disaster. All of them are translated. All of them can be ordered in bulk. All of them can be downloaded and free. So I'm going to stop there and pass it to Sharon.
All right. Thank you, Cora. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to spend a few minutes and just talk about our work with at HBCU Community Development Action Coalition, also known as CDAC, and just talk a little bit about our work there and what we do. We were founded in 2010 with the purpose of working with and supporting HBCUs and other minority serving institutions, the students, staff, and faculty, but also the surrounding communities. And we do that by intentionally seeking other local stakeholders and help leverage those partnerships to create an ecosystem that includes 4 of our initiatives. We have created this ecosystem that is replicable, that supports inclusive community economic development for all of the constituents in those low to moderate income areas. Next slide, please. So our 4 initiatives, the first one is Our Money Matters. Our Money Matters is an online financial literacy platform that is specifically geared for HBCUs and for the students, staff, and faculty, and again, the surrounding community. The platform offers a wealth of information on financial literacy topics, including budgeting, entrepreneurship, homeownership, etc. In addition to those resources, there are also other resources on the platform that include scholarship search for students, also an opportunity for a student to upload their resume and have it looked at by a professional, get some guidance on how to make that resume even better. There's also a job search on the platform as well. Our other initiative, our second initiative, is the Clean Energy Initiative. And the purpose of that initiative is to make clean energy, provide clean energy awareness to homeowners in and around HBCU communities. And we've been able through partnerships to provide free solar panels on homes around several HBCU campuses, including Morgan State, North Carolina A&T, just to name a couple. Next slide, please. We also have our Community Enterprise and Innovative Design Program, which is a program to help entrepreneurship. And we're working with entrepreneurs around HBCUs, working with organizations that support entrepreneurs and so we provide that as well. And then the next slide, our last initiative is our real estate investment program, and we are working with a developer right now. We are working on creating a $30 million real estate project near Claflin in South Carolina State. That's going to provide some additional housing, some dormitories, and some mixed use development as well. So those are our 4 initiatives, but I wanted to just spend just another minute going back to Our Money Matters, because that's the initiative that I'm responsible for. And with Our Money Matters, like I said, one of the areas that we focus on in that platform is home ownership and helping the students, staff, and faculty learn about the home buyer process, what they need to be ready to purchase a home, and also making sure that they get the skills and the knowledge that they need to be secure and confident enough to go and secure a mortgage. So just wanted to emphasize that. And so with that, I will pass it on to Odette.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharon. It's so wonderful to meet everyone. I wanted to start a little bit to speak about NCLC. Next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know NCLC, we advocate on behalf of low-income consumers. We provide legal analysis, case consultation, and a number of publications on consumer law issues. And we provide trainings online and through our in-person conferences. As part of our advocacy, we have the Racial Justice and Equal Economic Opportunity Project, where we work to address systemic racism in the financial and energy markets and advance economic justice for all consumers. Next slide, please. Part of our advocacy focuses on heirs property. What do I mean by heirs property? That is real property, homes and land, that is passed down informally from generation to generation. Most often without the benefit of a will or other estate planning tool. Or if there is a will, that will has not gone through the probate process. The property is jointly owned by multiple family members and other heirs. One of the core features of heirs property is that though the heirs own the property under state law, the ownership is not recorded or otherwise reflected in public land records. That means that the heirs have no legal proof of ownership of this property. Another core feature is that the ownership is divided and increasingly fractured over many, many generations. So you can see from the outline I have here on the screen that after a couple of generations, you may have dozens. In fact, you can even have hundreds of heirs who own one single piece of property. Next slide, please. So as you can anticipate, this type of ownership is highly unstable and it creates many, many problems. It really makes it difficult for heirs to maintain and manage the property. They cannot, for example, mortgage or sell the property. They cannot benefit from those local property tax relief programs. They cannot benefit from a lot of other public assistance programs, including the programs that are meant to assist people who have experienced disasters. And this, of course, leads to the loss of homes and land. On a systemic level, it also leads to the loss of affordable housing and community disinvestment. And it undermines your ability to assist your client if they're facing foreclosure or in need of other type of assistance to keep their home. And of course, another systemic problem is that it is a barrier to building wealth and to transferring that wealth through the generations. Next slide, please. So really the key to addressing heirs property is to have a firm and effective estate planning strategy. That could be through a simple will, it could be through trust, it could be through what Cora mentioned earlier, the transfer on death deeds. This is a simple and streamlined way that property owners can transfer ownership of their property upon their death. It's automatic. It doesn't involve making a will or going through the probate process. 29 states and Washington, D.C. currently have what we call TODs. For existing heirs, there are tools that are available like heirship affidavits, which will record who owns the property. This is useful if they want to get public benefits to help repair their homes, or if they need, for example, to benefit from property tax relief programs. And of course, a number of states have the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, the UPHPA, which will prevent predatory investors from trying to steal the home from the heirs property owner. Next slide, please. So what can you as a housing counseling professional do? Well, first off, you can help to educate your community through outreach in churches, libraries, community centers, senior centers, etc. You can share with the community the risk of dying without a will or other estate plan, and also the benefits of estate planning. You can help to refer them to low-cost direct service providers, whether that be legal services attorneys, pro bono attorneys, or attorneys who will charge a low fee to help prepare wills, trusts, TODs, to help existing heirs with heirship affidavits. You can help your client to avoid scammers. And as well, you can participate in any advocacy effort that there is, including here at NCLC, to increase resources for heirs, or to help increase resources for heirs to create estate plans or get assistance with probate as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry to help us parse through some of these issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Odette. So now we have a couple questions, and each of our guests have talked about some pretty significant issues that require, I think, extensive financial education. And they've presented resources that they have available that you as counselors might be able to take advantage of. And since we're here today to kind of talk about the overlap between financial education and housing counseling, I think my first question to all of the panelists is, do you think there's a bigger role for housing counselors to play in financial education with respect to the particular kind of resources and services you're providing? And if you do, tell me a little bit about what you think that looks like. And I'm going to start with Sharon to answer that question first.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Yes, I do think that there's certainly a way that housing counselors can work in providing their services, especially to the constituency that I serve in the HBCU community, and that's by partnering and creating partnerships. So we have the relationships with the HBCUs, so we have the relationship with the students, staff, and faculty, and also the surrounding community. And since we understand and we know that staff and faculty at HBCUs and other minority serving institutions make far less than their white counterparts, it makes sense that we could partner together to bring these resources to those individuals. And so I would encourage counselors to reach out, and let's put together a plan on how we can introduce them to our constituents, and then supplement what we have on our Money Matters platform, so they can have more in-depth education on the home buying process.
Great, thank you. Ron, let me turn to you. You've walked through Money Smart. I saw that Money Smart covers a lot of issues that are related to financial education issues. Some of the issues certainly are issues that counselors would be covering in their sessions. What's your view on if there's a larger role counselors can play in financial education, and how, what does that look like?
Well, housing counselors are advocates at the end of the day, very good advocates, aggressive advocates, and they can use those skills to advocate for their clients and inform financial education product producers like the FDIC, like Money Smart. Doesn't have to be only Money Smart, however, and they can speak to what the needs of their clients are with respect to financial education and how best it can be crafted to complement their housing counseling efforts. The second thing they can do is inform their clients on other Money Smart products aside from the one that we've spoken about, Money Smart for adults. They can help their family members of their clients by mentioning things such as our Money Smart for older adult product, which is aimed at preventing financial exploitation and abuse of older adults. Our Money Smart for young adults speaks for itself, and our Money Smart for small business product aimed at those emerging entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Ron. Cora, I was interested to see that CFPB had done some research and identified these 4 areas that older people seem to encounter that maybe they haven't given enough thought to, and causes them to have to decide what to do with their home. And so I am curious, probably the only time counselors interact with an older adult who already owns their home is if they're looking to refinance or get a reverse mortgage. So tell me a little bit about how you think counselors might play a bigger role in financial education, particularly with the resources that you all have.
Yeah, so to harken back to my legal aid days, you know, when a client came in, it was rarely, he or she was rarely just with a legal issue, right? And they would drop clues along the way. You know, you had to make sure that they had food, that they were taking their medication. And then once those issues were covered, you know, that they were going to have a meal, then we could talk about their legal issue. And I'd imagine that with housing counselors, it's sort of similar, right? You guys are first responders, really. You are the people on the ground that are meeting with individual people in need. And so I'm guessing that they, similar to my previous clients, drop clues, right? So even if it's not an older adult, maybe they talk about having an older family member, right? And then there are resources about how do you help them, that older family member manage their money, right? And so we have guides on managing someone else's money, which helps them walk through, you know, how do I become a power of attorney so I can help mom with her home? Or again, there's one about help for surviving spouses, right? And so when my father passed away last year, I gave my mom the guide because I knew it was out there, and it was a great checklist in a hard time where your brain isn't really working of what do I need to do now that my spouse is gone, right? And so because you meet with people where they're at, there are plenty of opportunities to educate people. And to Ron's point, you know, we work with FDC on Money Smart. It's a joint project between the CFPB and the FDIC. And there's plenty of studies out there showing that for preventing fraud and scams at any age, when people know that fraud and scams are out there, they're less susceptible to falling for them. And so through Money Smart and other resources that both of our agencies have produced, it flags what kind of scams are out there, right? The tax return scam, the grandparent scam, and scammers are always reinventing the newest scam. So even just having resources on frauds and scams could prevent people from losing hundreds and thousands of dollars that jeopardizes their financial security. So I think housing counselors, like I said, are first responders and are perfect for having these resources as their clients drop clues on, you know, what their individual needs might be.
Thank you, Cora. I think you're right in that we're first responders. In fact, so much so that I think the session after us is about kind of dealing with some of the stresses of being in that role. The last person I'm going to turn to on this question is Odette, who gave us a very clear explanation of some of the challenges with heirs properties. And I must admit, I wasn't aware of the extent to which heirs properties meant it was property that wasn't legally, or that the ownership wasn't recorded. And so having that knowledge and understanding the problems that can cause, I think is very useful. And I would just ask you, Odette, how do you think counselors can be more available or more helpful? What role might they play when it comes to financial education around these issues?
Sure. Counselors can play a very important role in educating their clients about the prevalence of heirs property and some of the issues that it causes. Because as I mentioned earlier, it really leads to loss of that home. And one of the ways you can do that, or there's several actually ways that you can do that. First, you can provide this information as part of your curriculum, the home buying curriculum, for example. You can incorporate it as part of the presentation. You can discuss it at any post-purchase courses or workshops that you provide. You can also work with estate planning lawyers or legal services attorneys or pro bono attorneys to create a freestanding webinar or course on estate planning, giving folks the basics. Now, folks might not be, you're saying, well, how is this going to work? People are excited about getting their homes. They're excited to be in their homes. They don't want to hear about death or anything like that. But what you can do is to style it as life planning. This is part of what we do to preserve our homes. This is part of what we do to make sure the home is going to pass down to our children and grandchildren. So we want to meet our clients where they are, at what stage of their life that they're entering into, and this stage is where they want to be homeowners and want to be homeowners over a long term. So working it into the curriculum, creating freestanding opportunities for them to learn more, and also making sure that, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys this, if you work with populations that don't speak English well, that you're providing this information in multiple languages.
Thank you. Those are very thoughtful answers. We very much appreciate them. Each of you did walk through some very specific resources that you have and programs that you're on. So I want to drill down on those a little bit. And I'm also happy to take questions from the audience if we have one of those, any of those. Let me just start with Ron. You talked about Money Smart. I remember a slide that showed, I think, maybe 15 different subjects that Money Smart covers. I noted that many of them would be subjects that housing counselors would use. And so I know housing counselors can take advantage of Money Smart. I'm curious, do you have any sense of how housing counselors are using Money Smart, where they might be, just kind of what they're doing with Money Smart?
That's a great question. Some housing counselors are already reaching out to other housing counselors who happen to be members of the Money Smart Alliance in order to confer on financial education, how to use it, how not to use it, how it might blend with their housing counseling efforts in total. Others attend the FDIC workshops online or in person. There are various kinds of orientations, and they give specific feedback on the Money Smart housing and home ownership modules so that we can improve those modules, but they're not limited to those modules. They encourage their clients to play our online learning game, of course, and they establish their own organizational accounts to monitor the progress of their clients. They line up clients who may not yet be ready for housing counseling with organizations that provide Money Smart for Adult workshops. They also gain access frequently, thanks to you, Terry, and your teammates, of the Money Smart suite that's contained on the HUD's exchange platform. And sometimes they combine it with other proprietary products and resources. And then finally, a lot of organizations are starting to attend the FDIC Keys to Home Ownership field events to engage banks that are facilitating LMI mortgage access. And more, those events are done in conjunction with HUD.
Thank you, Ron. Cora, given the reasons that you see older adults seeking counseling, what kind of resources do you think counselors should be using to support them?
Yeah, so I mean, as someone mentioned on this call, you know, a lot of them will come to housing counselors because of the mandatory reverse mortgage counseling requirement if they want to get a home equity loan, a HECM. So that might be an entry point, but you know, I think, like I had mentioned in my previous answer, you know, I think there are lots of areas that beyond reverse mortgages, housing counselors will see. So for example, the Bureau just put out some consumer facing materials on solar financing, right? And so depending on where the housing counseling is located, you know, that might be an area that's ripe for housing counselors to mention when it, you know, someone comes in, particularly those the solar financing products are targeting older adults because they own their homes and limited English proficiency communities. And there are tons of hidden fees and promises that are inflated on the return of those kind of loans. So again, you know, every stage of the financial life of someone, I think can then hearken to, everyone knows an older adult, everyone has a family member who's an older adult. So thinking about, you know, does my mom, does my great aunt, do they have like Odette was saying, do they have a will? Do they have a way to pass down the house? But also, is there a game plan on how someone's going to manage their money? You know, do they need to talk to a financial advisor? How do they know who is a reliable financial advisor? I think it's just, you know, the house is so central to every part of our life that the housing counseling, you know, is right for disseminating all sorts of information.
So we're kind of a central point that almost could be taken advantage of or leveraged by a lot of people to make sure people get the information.
Right. For example, I'm not an older adult, but my mom is, right? And so, and I'm going to be the one who will one day manage her money and manage her house and manage her finances. So I am, although I don't fit the demographic of an older adult, I am a prime candidate for all of this information because I need to think ahead to make sure that my mom is safe from fraud and scams and losing her home and is able to pass it down to who she wants to, so forth and so on.
Okay. Sharon, let me ask you, I don't think we've covered this. How can counselors take advantage of the resources that the HBCU Coalition offers?
Yeah, certainly they can visit our website and learn more about our work. But you know, when I'm thinking about just listening to what Cora said, our HBCUs, our students, and certainly our staff and faculty are in that what we call the sandwich generation, where, to Cora's point, right, they have their parents, older adults that they're dealing with, and they also have their own children who are probably students in college or getting ready to go to college. So they're in this sandwich generation where they do need access to all of the information that's been provided. And oh, by the way, I took a few notes myself from what you said, Cora, but I, for our counselors, I think, again, some of the work that we do, very similar to Ron and over at FDIC, is with our platform. We do monthly seminars and webinars on some of our services and the products that we offer to our HBCUs. I would love to have some counselors on some of those calls and have them more specific to homeownership. And there are opportunities where we do meet on campus. In some of our campuses, we do have what we call our 800 Club, and these are student-led clubs where they are learning financial literacy, and we also have a version of that club for staff and faculty because their needs are very unique. And very different from the students. And so again, we have our staff and faculty that are in this sandwich generation on the front end of that need those kinds of services and resources. And again, they're making significantly less than staff and faculty at white institutions, predominantly white institutions. And so again, I would just encourage the counselors to reach out to me, visit our website, and let's partner to bring what they have to offer to our constituents.
Great. Thank you. We do have a couple questions from the audience. For Cora, what's the best place to refer a client who may be the victim of a scam? I think you may be on mute.
Yes, I am. Sorry. I was going to say that I'm going to ask Ron to chime in here too, because both of our agencies work on fraud and scams. One of the first things that a person should do is report it to their financial institution to see if they can immediately start to try to claw back the money. I should also just preface by saying that there should be no shame in being someone who has lost money to a fraud and scam. Scammers are very sophisticated criminals, and the amount of fraud and scams is so underreported that many people fall prey to these. So I just want to say that no one should feel shame in this, but they need to act quickly, really, is the bottom line. they need to contact their financial institution. They should contact their law enforcement agencies. A colleague of mine who specializes in fraud and scams, I'm more of a housing specialist and a fraud and scam specialist, says that the AARP has a fraud and scam hotline. That is another, it's called AARP Fraud Watch Network Hotline. And then there's also the Cybercrime Support Network that deals with romance scams. And the Bureau has a whole bunch of resources on what to do after falling prey to fraud and scam, and so does the FDIC. So, Ron, do you want to chime in too?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, but I'd say hit them back on the federal side, state side, and local side. You can always go to your local consumer affairs office, and they can orient you on everywhere you should be going. But the FBI has their IC3 center, where they report some scams there. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, has their own intake on that. Always, if it's bank related, you can always go to your bank regulator on the federal side, the FDIC, the OCC, the Federal Reserve. They all have their consumer assistance complaint centers, and I think that should cover the gist of it. You can always, of course, go to the state attorney general's offices. They all have their fraud prevention units. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Odette, let me turn to you. You provided a lot of, I think, very useful information. I suspect that working on these issues can be a little bit complex when working with clients. And so I want to ask, what do you think is sort of the most important thing counselors need to know when they're working with a client who needs support with estate planning?
Sure. I think the first thing that they need to know is that they need to help your client to access resources, legal resources, primarily legal services, pro bono attorney, or a low-cost attorney to help them figure out how to address heirs property if they are in that situation. If they are not in that situation, there are most legal services organizations offer assistance in preparing a will. So that's one really simple way to get started on estate planning. So help your client find those resources. The other thing to do is, as I mentioned earlier, to really, really talk about the need to do estate planning. And realize that when you mention this, you want to do a positive framing, of course, but people are going to think about it. They're not going to make a will right away. They're going to go think about who their beneficiaries might be, how they would want to pass on their property to their family members. So give them time and circle back around later on and talk to them and said, hey, have you thought about this? What are you thinking? Can I help you find some resources to help you put a plan in place?
Thank you. We do have
And just to add to that, sorry,
Oh,
just to make a plug. So the housing guide on how to leave your home to your heirs is a great take home, right? So it just gives them enough information where they can sit with it, read with it, and then come back and learn where they can get more information. But, you know, I see that someone had a question about how do we normalize these kind of conversations. It's so important to have them so that way there is a plan, because when there's a crisis situation, as we all know, that's again where people are open, they're desperate, right? And they turn to the first voice that comes to them. And what if it's a fraudster? What if it is, you know, not a good actor? So making a plan really protects the family moving forward.
any other comments or thoughts on this issue?
One more thought, following up on what Cora and Ron were talking about earlier in terms of frauds and scams. Being in an heirs property situation makes your client very vulnerable to predatory investors. Those investors will find a co-owner of the property. They will buy out that co-owner's interest for a nominal amount, and they may force a sale of the property and buy that property for below market value. So there are the Uniform Partition of Heirs Act is meant to address this issue, but just want your client should know that having this unstable form of home ownership makes them very vulnerable to some really bad scammers out there.
That's really helpful information. Let's see, I think we have some more questions. What's the best way to get started offering financial education on college campuses? And I think, Sharon, that's probably for you.
Yeah, so the first thing you have to do with anything is build those relationships, right? And so it starts with relationship building, and then the schools have a requirement and a responsibility to offer financial literacy to their students. And so to help with that, we have our program again called Our Money Matters, and so we've been able to integrate some of our coursework from our platform into the schools, and so the students can get credit for taking some of those courses, and it also helps the schools meet their objective of providing financial education to the students.
Thank you. Lindsay, did you have any other questions? Are there any other questions out there we should be taking a look at?
Thanks, Terry. No, we are covering so much ground here today, and I appreciate that, this is a great survey, especially across the life cycle of all the relevant concerns that come up. Another question I had for you, Sharon, in your discussion of what you're doing with Our Money Matters and your work with HBCUs, you mentioned the concept of financial freedom. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means and how you all define that topic?
Yeah, I think the best way to define financial freedom is having a financial plan that leads to financial independence. And I think that just kind of sums it up. And so how do you make that happen? How do you get there? And so when you think about that, it's more than just having enough money on hand to pay the bills. It's having a plan that will help you meet your goals and your aspirations, not just for now, but for long term. And it's also considering a generational wealth as well. So it's having a plan that goes beyond yourself. And so when we think about financial freedom, we think about it for this generation, but we also think about it for generations to come. And so in order to get there, learning the tools that you need to have financial independence, creating that plan for now and for wealth building for your next generations to come is what encompasses financial freedom.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think that, it helps really think about, of course, if you start there and think about the issues folks are encountering later in life that Odette and Cora have spoken to, it's that planning, coming up with a plan seems to be a recurring theme. Folks seem to, in the audience, seem to be really interested in understanding more, of course, about heirs, property, and transfer, and working with older adults. And one of the questions that came in, and I'm curious for all of our panelists, is where you might be able to find a list of current frauds and scams that folks need to be aware of to avoid. Is that something that we can refer folks back to?
I can chime in. I think it's incumbent to understand before you answer that kind of question that there's a constant turnover of new scams. There's a scam of the day, like a flavor of the month. And even if it's the same scam, it will be presented in a different format. So it's not so much what a list of scams, but a list of key ingredients that are incorporated in any kind of scam. And that's for those are lessons contained in Money Smart for Older Adult product, the joint product of the CFPB, for instance. What are some core definitions or elements? Well, they want you to make a quick decision. They want to isolate you from that decision. They want to instill fear. So a good sort of approach is to think in terms of those common elements that can be applied to any kind of scam, so that folks can smell a bad thing coming before they're involved in it.
Yeah, We also have, I mean, the FDIC and the CFPB have lots of handouts. So I would advocate that, you know, if you have a bookshelf in your office or even, you know, when you do it electronically with the consumer, you can email them some certain materials. We have some, we used to call them placemats because they were originally planned for places like Meals on Wheels, where it could be delivered to isolated older adults or isolated people. They don't even have to be older, but isolation is one telltale target. People who are isolated are targeted. And so we did a lot of user research, and we found that people remember things more if it becomes a game, like a puzzle or something that they solve. And so we produce these, well, again, placemats, but they're just handouts that are games, crossword puzzles relating to certain scams, right? So the grandparent scam, the romance scam, the tax return scam. So it's kind of a fun way to educate people. And I would encourage housing counselors just to have them easily to download an email or out on your bookshelves. So whoever's waiting for you can, you know, pick them up. Banks have been using them a lot. As a matter of fact, they're our largest orderer of these placemats, and they have them in their lobbies. So, you know, Ron's right. There are telltale ingredients to every scam, but, you know, exposing people to these known scams is the best way to prevent it. And then, you know, they tell their neighbor and they tell their neighbor. So word of mouth is a really powerful tool, and you can be the start of that flow.
I would add that the Federal Trade Commission also produces a newsletter with a kind of a scam of the day outlook. It highlights what is trending in terms of scams generally in the US. So if you can sign up for that, that would be good as well.
Okay. Just go to their website and sign up. That sounds like that would be a very useful thing for folks to do.
Yeah, we will be sure to circulate that.
That'd be great. I'm conscious of time. I think we have 4 minutes left. This has been a great discussion. You guys have amazing resources that I think housing counselors could and should take advantage of. But you're also just doing really important work, and it really speaks volumes about the need for financial education and the many different areas in which people can access it. So I am excited to have been able to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate it. And
guys,
thank you to all of our panelists. Like I said, we covered so much ground today, and we wanted to bring it together with the unifying theme of financial education and all the resources that are available where counselors don't have to do it all themselves. So I have a few up on the screen. These resources are also included in the materials that are available through CVent. And it's very clear to us that there are more opportunities for us to provide more resources on specifics around estate planning and things like that. So we are making that mental note, and we'll circulate this as well as the ones that were mentioned today, the FTC newsletter and the CFPB's placemats. I love all the ways we're making that accessible to folks. We are wrapping up our session this afternoon, and we will have one more session today for our community conference on balancing the professional demands of housing counselors. Highly recommend at 4:30 joining us. We'll be talking about mental health and stress management. So it's a great way to cap off the day for all of us who are looking for more support in that area, and something we want to highlight. So thank you again for joining us for this session. More to come. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well. And I want to thank Terry and our speakers again for sharing all of their resources with us. We will find you all on CVent, and then after the conference, you'll be able to find everything on our conference webpage. That's it for us. So we'll see you again shortly. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.